Hello, a warm welcome to everyone who is participating in this webinar. We have people from all across Canada and also from different parts of the world. And many friends I know are out there, so hello to everyone. My name is Jenny Cafiso, and I'm the Director of Canadian Jesuits International. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar, which we have called Hope in Solidarity. COVID-19 and the Syrian refugee crisis. First, let me tell you a few things to ensure a smooth webinar. Because we have a very large number of participants, everyone's microphone will be muted. However, you can use the question chat pane function on the pull-down menu on the webinar control panel to type your question. So please feel free to do so during the presentation, and then we will group the questions for Father Nawras to address them at the end. The session will also be recorded, and you can get a copy of this afterwards. This webinar is our Hope in Solidarity webinar series. It's part of that series through which we want to bring the stories of our Jesuit partners in the Global South during this global pandemic. Father Nawras was supposed to visit us in Toronto, but due to the pandemic, his trip was canceled. And we're very sad about that, and we hope he comes later on. But we're delighted that this has given us the opportunity for him to join us this way, and also that allows people from different parts of the world to join us. So welcome to everyone. Before I introduce him, even though we're all in different locations, since we're hosting it in Toronto, I still want to acknowledge the land on which we stand. For those of you who are not in Canada, this is a practice in Canada in response to the recommendations of Indigenous people. It is a recognition of their presence both in the past and the present here. Therefore, as CJI, we acknowledge the land we're meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. I also want to take just a moment of silence or prayer to acknowledge, remember, and honor all those who are currently mourning someone they have lost due to the pandemic, or those who are sick, those who are afraid, and those who are dying of hunger because of COVID. So let's just take a moment. Thank you. So today, Father Nawras Sammour will speak on the humanitarian impact of COVID-19 on those affected by the Syrian conflict. He will also talk about what gives them hope in this crisis, in the middle of this crisis. Father Nawras is the Regional Director of the Jesuit Refugee Service in Middle East and North Africa. And Father Nawras joined the Society of Jesus in 1994 and subsequently studied philosophy and theology in Paris, sociology in Beirut, and ethical theology at the University of St. Paul in Ottawa. In 2010, Father Nawras began working with JRS in the Middle East and was appointed National Director of JRS in Syria. And now, as Regional Director for JRS MENA, Middle East and North Africa, he's responsible for JRS programs serving refugees in Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, and Iraq. And Father Nawras is also a good friend. He inspires me with his commitment and courage, and also with his great sense of humor and deep sense of hope. So welcome, Father Nawras, and over to you.
Many thanks, Jenny. Many thanks for the invitation, for having me. And I'm really grateful to Canadian Jesuit International in Canada. You are friends and you are very much our partners, I would say, in the mission. What I'm going to share with you tonight, it's a quiet word for me. I mean, to talk to myself, I see myself, but I know I'm with you and you are with me. Anyway, what I'm going to share, it's a quiet, my personal reading of what is going on right now. This situation, unusual situation, which affects the, I mean, it's worldwide. Weird situation, I would say. So it's my personal account, my personal reading. And let me start by telling you that 2 months ago, exactly 2 months, the 5th of March, I was coming back from Syria. I mean, you see Syria here. It's my homeland. I'm from Aleppo, and overnight travel after visiting Damascus and Homs for my work. And you see, it's I arrived to the border, and I noticed something really strange. All the agents at the border with masks and with you know, gloves, and there are ambulance at the border from both sides, you know, the Syrian side and the Lebanese side. And you know, it was okay. March, we heard about novel coronavirus, COVID-19, baptized later, and then, but we considered it something, you know, far away from us in some countries, in Asia, in China, and then in Europe, in Italy, and a little bit in Spain. But yeah, it's here. And I arrived to Beirut. I was supposed to prepare the upcoming country directors meeting the following week for you know, JRS, people coming from Iraq, from Jordan and Lebanon and Syria. And Friday, I received a phone call from our country director there in Iraq, telling me I can't come. There's a kind of lockdown because there are some cases. And then following that, the Jordanian one, my fellow Jordanian country director, he said the same. And little bit, I didn't know how to manage that. And a little bit later, I received a message from my superior telling me that the residence, the Jesuit residence where my office is completely in quarantine because there's somebody affected, only one. And then the next day, 2, and 4 days later, we have 12 cases in Jesuit residence. The same week, a fellow colleague of JRS is in travel in Germany, going around for some advocacy and fundraising tour. He came back from Germany and he's, you know, tested positive. So a whole mess, a complete whole mess. We didn't know how to deal. I didn't know how to manage that because I was supposed right after that country director meeting to come to Canada through Europe. And I was wondering, should I cancel the travel? Should I come to continue? I feel nothing. I didn't manifest any symptom for sure, but am I affected? And if I'm affected, I mean, if I'm really infected by the virus, am I going to survive? Those who are infected, are they going to survive? So all that kind of you know, the whole world, it was like upside down world for me. And then I went through the test before traveling for me, and it was negative. And then suspension of all international flights, and if I left, I would be never let in. So this is the word, the first week of March. And so I canceled everything, and we didn't know. We closed all our activities, and that comes right after the huge problem in Syria. The next slide, please. war, 10 years. I mean, we are running the 10 years of the 10th year of wars in Syria, and with a lot of people killed, hundreds of thousands of people killed, and 6.6 million IDPs, internally displaced people, something like 6 million refugees, mainly in neighboring countries, and something like 85% of Syrian population under the line of poverty, and which is $2 per person per day, which is completely nothing. The huge, inflection, something like the dollar, it's today 1,300 Syrian pounds, which is the salary of an engineer, let's say, working for the government for 30 years. His salary, or her salary, it's not gonna be enough for buying 50 kilograms of tomato. And this is the situation in Syria. And with that curfew and lockdown, the daily worker, which is the whole economy of the majority of Syrians today, they are not able to go to work. So huge problem, a humanitarian problem for sure. In Lebanon, a country of 6.8 million the population, and with a chronic problem, political, social, economical problem. The war finished in Lebanon in 1990, but the consequences of the war till now, it's not finished for sure. And last October, people, they are in the streets. I mean, they want the reform, the change. They want their rights. All bank problems, like capital controls. I mean, unofficial haircut, unofficial capital control. People, they are not able to get their own save in the banks, etc., etc. And here we are in coronavirus. And I noticed, let me tell you that in Lebanon, I mean, since October till now, thousands of small and medium enterprises, they are closed. Tens of thousands of people, they lost work and they have nothing. And we noticed people for the first time looking in the garbage for having something to eat. I'm not exaggerating saying that. And people, when we go around, they used to work, like simple job, like, shoes shiners. They don't ask for anything but to work. And now they are begging, even though they are waiting for a client to come for cleaning shoes. So this is the situation, today's situation in our area, in Lebanon, in Syria, and we don't have any idea about the future. What would the future be for us? Although, let me tell you, the last digits of today's in Lebanon, we have only 741 cases. Unfortunately, 25 people already dead, and one of them is a Jesuit, and all our fellow Jesuits, they are recovered, thank God. And in Syria, we have only 44 cases with 3 people, dead people. I mean, it's relatively speaking, it's not a political statement. The way of managing that, it was good. Curfew, lockdown, etc., etc. So that's good, but the effect, it's not in terms of the health. The effect, it was on the daily people's lives. I mean, we don't know. We have people in need. 40% of Lebanese today, beside the refugees, the Syrians, 1.3 million, and Palestinians, something like 400,000, and all the workers, they are in need. And my biggest concern is to have later on, I hope not, a famine. And if there's a famine, we don't know how to manage that and to cope with that reality. So this is our word today. As a Christian, as a priest, as a Jesuit, we try to do our best, either in JRS or in other social centers, run by Jesuits and partners, lay and men and women. But how could we manage that? Let me start by telling you, next slide please, that the after, please, the one after. Let me start by telling you a sentence said by a Syrian author, very much known. His name is Saadallah Wannous. He said, "We are condemned to hope." I like this phrase, "we are condemned." When we are condemned, somebody is condemned. It's something imposed on him. He could nothing but to be condemned, but condemned to hope. This is because for me, this phrase would be, here lies all the beauty of Christian message, this life of paradox. We are condemned to hope. We are human beings and we are Christian because we can believe and we can bear that message of hope despite all circumstances. Let me tell you first my first paradox. I would say my reading of that situation, those last 2 months, I was thinking that would it be that situation like, a kind of that paradox between the virtual world. We are very much into virtual world, we are now in webinar, it's virtual, and the real world. I would say we are maybe living in a kind of revenge of the real world on the two virtual. We relied on the virtual for, very much on the virtual. Our security today, remember when we come from the 20th century to the 21st, the biggest concern of the world was the bug of the computer, that the whole system would crash. And we invest a lot, we paid a lot. But it's not reality. We rely on cybersecurity, we rely on virtual security, we rely on firewalls, and we didn't even think about a possibility of a little virus. And we reduced all our precautions in terms of masks, in terms of ventilators, would be interpreted in a such way, too virtual and less real. And it's a paradoxical because we are today in a virtual. I'm talking to you in a kind of virtual world. This is my first point, my first thought. The second one, I was thinking that it's the eternal return of that tension between science and religion. From one side, we have those who do believe very much in science. Science is the superpower, and we can do anything and everything through science. Till the point that some of those people would believe that the whole world, today's world, it's under the control of only few people, very powerful, those who know and who know everything. And they are even able to create virus. Not only that, the whole, let's say, all the 5G invention, it's a kind of to control the humanity. And even though if there's a vaccine, it would be a kind of the control of the whole humanity and all human beings. Conspiracy theory. They do believe in science, and it's somehow God, and it's in the hands of only few people. That's one side. On the other side, and since science has proven to be deficient, even powerless, so should we then resort to religion? I mean, let's denounce the arrogance of modern humanity. It's very arrogant, the modernity, and it's powerless. That's why we have to find our spiritual resources. It's a kind of apocalyptic reading of the reality. I mean, two extremes. And it's the eternal debate or tension between science and religion. But I think it's our biggest temptation as a Christian today to resurface in somehow that apocalyptic reading and to rejoice that it's realized in our world today. I would say a Christian reading of that reality, of that dramatic situation in which we are living today, it would be a Jesuit of the 17th century got it very well. He said, trust God as if success depends only on you and not on God at all. I mean, come on, trust God as success depends only on you. It's a paradox. But yes, because for us, the action of God passes through our hands. We are partners, co-creators with God. And in the hands of doctors, of nurses, of researchers, of poor delivery men, volunteer young men and women who volunteers for, giving all kinds of possibilities and to elderly stuck at home. Those people, I mean, the power of God goes through those people. But we have to continue that Jesuit sentiment of the 17th century and put all your hard work as if God was going to do everything and you nothing. So we have to remember we are not the masters of the results of our action. We are not the masters. We are not saviors. This is where the spiritual comes in. Not as more effective magical means, by magical means, but as the confidence that we are not alone in our fight. We are not alone in our fight. This is it. This is it. My third point, paradoxical point, it's that kind of reading. I mean, those decision makers, the big ones, I'm not going to mention any name. The big ones, decision makers, some of them, they opt to sacrifice the the economic well-being for the sake of vulnerable people. And others, they would sacrifice that, the human persons for the sake of the economy and the progress and the prosperity. So what kind of tension between liberal ethics and Christian ethics? I mean, without mentioning here, I mean, we are in a very, very, very present crisis, and the pace of change is very, very fast, for sure. But let's think about something which is a long-term problem, and it was for us like a warning, namely the ecological problem. I mean, what kind of sacrifice are we going to do? What kind of option, what kind of approach to the reality, what kind of ethics, liberal ethics or Christian ethics? I don't like to be in the shoes of those decision makers, and even less in the shoes of those doctors who have to sort the patients to choose those who are stronger and for ventilation. I mean, could you imagine a doctor is compelled to do the hardest decision about either put in ventilation an old man or a young man? young women or old women. And the only criteria is who's the stronger. I mean, it's too difficult. It's too difficult. And this is our reality today. What kind of ethics? Where's the human dignity? I mean, those who are the elderly of our world today, they made our prosperity today. Remember, after the Second War and how the Western world was rebuilt up by those people, and maybe they would be. I mean, I don't think that, but they are our sacrifice. I mean, unfortunately. My last point is that paradox about between we are in uncertainty. I mean, in complete uncertainty. The situation, it's uncertain, and let's be in this uncertainty, inventing and creative. I mean, inventive and creative. So that paradox between uncertainty and creativity and inventing. Here, I'm very much inspired by the example of Pope Francis. I mean, Pope Francis, just exhort people, and especially the pastors, to be close to their own people, not to overprotect themselves. People of God, they need pastors to be self-sacrificing and who stay close. I mean, the creativity of the Christian needs to show forth in opening up new horizons, even though we are stuck at home. New horizons. In what way? I don't know. We need creativity. Opening windows, opening transcendence toward gods and towards people. I mean, we have to take care of the now for the sake of tomorrow, but to take care of the now in a very moderate and Christian way, and always creatively. I mean, we have to be capable of inventing something new each day. The church should be, and this is Pope Francis who said that, a field hospital, the church. I mean, we are living in a very close churches. None of believer is going to the church, not in Syria, nor in Lebanon, nor in Canada, nor everywhere. I mean, churches are closed. But let me tell you something. I mean, it might be that how the church can repent of the wounds inflicted very recently by a few of its representatives on the weakest. I'm talking about scandals. I mean, in the past, churches were open, pretty full, but especially priests were pointed as abusers because of some of them. As you know, I mean, we lost trust. People, they don't trust us anymore, unfortunately. And here we are, because of that virus. I mean, the church, although the churches are closed, but the whole church is in the center of the world. I mean, remember that image of Francis alone in St. Peter's Square praying for the whole world, going from, I mean, through the roads and the streets of Rome to adorate, to pray for the whole world. Remember all those men and women of the church serving the patients in the hospitals. They paid, some of them, they paid their own lives. In Italy, something like 150, in Spain, in France, in the States, in Germany, everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. So if I could say, I mean, after the Shoah, some Jewish thinkers, and I'm going to finish like that, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about our work, in a practical way here in the region. I mean, some thinkers, those who are, I'm sorry, it's, I finished my time. Some thinkers after the Shoah, mainly Jews, try to think about that bad experience, that evil, and they say it's true. Few are guilty, but we are all responsible. Let me say, I mean, using the same syllogism and paraphrase their own saying, and let me say, in the church of today, few are heroes, but we are all called to solidarity, although we are in a social distancing. We are invented to creativity. I know friends of mine, they launch retreat during the Holy Week. I mean, during the Lent time, they launch retreat online. Thousands of people without exaggeration. Spiritual direction online. We as a JRS, we are invented to be creative. So we work remotely. We continue to accompany people, our people, my colleagues, my collaborators, my friends. They are continuing to accompany people through those, gadgets, WhatsApp, phone calls, and all other. Could you go for the next slides, please? And we can use all the possibilities. I mean, we adapted ourselves to all the curriculum in our educational program, to reach out our students through telephones. And we are preparing to be concrete as well. We're real. I mean, not only the virtual, the real. People are starving today. So that's why we need help. And we are preparing to distribute food baskets, hygiene kits, etc., etc. So this is our way, my way, let's say, my way of saying the reality. And I would like to thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Father Nawras, for your presentation. This is so we now have time for questions or comments, and I know already some people have sent a few questions. So just sort of as a reminder, on the pane on the right or on the left, I'm not sure. Mine is on the right. There is a place where you can write your question and send it in, and we will try to group them together if there are many, so that he can address them all. So let me start with there's a couple of questions. One is so somebody's asking, we hear that young people in particular are very unhappy with the situation, and even before COVID-19. And so the question is, where do you see signs of hope for positive change coming from young people in Syria or in Lebanon?
Oof. I don't like to be negative, but let me tell you, I mean, people, they are desperate. That's true. People, they are really, they don't trust anymore the future in my, this area of the world. But yet, a lot of them, they are really engaged, and they are volunteering, for example, to help others. They are engaged to to reclaim their rights to the change. They are not mute anymore. They try to reclaim their right to the change. Let's say they dream that possibility of having a just world, justice for everybody, that kind. We have maybe to accompany, and in a very realistic way, without being very much idealistic. And I would say the change would start with us. So let's try to do something in the capacity we have in our hands. So that's why, for example, education would be very, very much important in this kind of situation, to give the opportunity to that young to this generation to be able to bear, all those values, human values. So this is it. But to be frank with you, those who are really dreamer, let's say, like in Imagine of John Lennon, but they are very few, and we need just to do something together. I mean, to build up that hope together.
Okay, thank you. So we have a couple of questions about the situation in refugee camps. So somebody's asking, what can you tell us about the people who live in refugee camps? What's happening there? Are people allowed to go out? And in what way are people being helped there?
Okay, let me tell you something. I mean, at the beginning, it was tense it was tense for everybody, and it's quite a classic in a very bad situation like this. We look to find those who are responsible of it, like, scapegoat theory, So in some areas in Lebanon, for example, some camps, they were labeled as a potential source of the virus, which is completely nonsense. Now it's much lesser, I would say, But let me tell you something. I mean, could you imagine Syria of today? I mean, people lining up every day for having, when there's no curfew, for having just 1 kilograms of bread, lining up for 1 or 2 hours. I mean, hundreds, tens of people, for not exaggerating, and none of them are, is infected. I mean, at the beginning, I thought it's like there are some, will to head up all the information about the reality of COVID-19 in Syria. But when I try to scratch a little bit, I ask those who are, to whom I'm connected, friends, family, and friends of friends, and family of members of families, etc. None of them is infected today. So I have to believe in miracles. I have to believe in miracles. I mean, a lot of camps, no running water. Not only we heard about one case in a Palestinian camp in Baalbek. It's something I can't understand. And but let's hope that it's gonna continue like that, because if by bad chance, there's outbreaking situation. The situation is going to break out in a very rapid way. It could cost something like hundreds of thousands of people lives in Syria, and something like tens of thousands of people lives in Lebanon. So we hope not. Till now, the way of managing the situation, again, it's not a political statement, it's something good in Lebanon. And even though the follow-up from the Ministry of Health in both countries, it's so far it's okay. Thank God.
Thank you. We have a question about the situation inside of Syria now. One question is, how can we trust the COVID numbers from Syria? Given the war, the balkanization of the country, is there any way to actually know the number of COVID deaths, let alone the number of
I answered in somehow this question. I don't know those people who are affected, but I know a lot of people. In my, just the people I know and those who are known from the people I know. I mean, it's thousands of people. None of them is. So it's something. It's something I can't understand. I can't. And it's still. This is the something the reality. If there's something hidden, I don't know. I can't confirm. But what I can confirm that none of people I know they are affected, which is something completely strange.
And sort of perhaps related to that question, there's a question, perhaps maybe you've already answered it, but a question in terms of how is the COVID virus impacting the ongoing conflict, and in particularly, is it impacting the resistance in Idlib or possibly anywhere else elsewhere in Syria?
I don't know, but war doesn't stop. I mean, they don't care. Those who are in war. I mean, poor soldiers and the fighters. I mean, they are in war. So it's sad to say that, in somehow they just uh, allow me to use that expression. It's mine. They become friends with death. I mean, for them, death it means nothing. 9 years of war. We are I mean, we are in our 10th year. They are desperate at that point that death means nothing. So if there's an order to continue fighting, they are going to continue to fight. War doesn't stop in Syria. I mean, it's not going to stop. It's always in the hands of those superpowers. I mean, solution. You see, I mentioned at the very beginning, 3 in 1. We are living in 3 Syrias today. One Syria, it's under the curse with little presence of the central government, with the presence of the American soldiers on the Syrian soil. On the other hand, the central Syria with the presence of Russians and Iranians and other soldiers in our soil. And the third one is invaded by Turkey and under the Islamist groups, and so this is Syria of today. So those who are fighters, unfortunately, I mean, it's quite classic as well. I mean, the last big pandemic of 20th century was the Spanish flu. You say that in English, Spanish flu. And it was during the first war. Fighters, they continue to fight at that time, huh? And there's that pandemic, and with something like 50 million people killed, beside the war and beside all the other problems. Can you imagine? So yeah, this is in somehow our dramatic situation. Yeah, but again, it's always like that. Nothing changed in terms of the conflict, Syrian conflict. It's in the hands of the superpowers. I mean, the Russians, the Americans, the Iranians, the Turks, and a little bit in the hands of some Syrians, unfortunately.
Perhaps related to that, there's a question of international aid organizations, agencies. Are there any left inside of Syria? And are they still providing help to local people, to internally displaced people, to refugees, hosting communities? What is the status right now of the presence of international agencies, both inside Syria and outside?
I mean, in Lebanon, all the agencies they are operational, no problem. And because of situation of COVID, there's no, I mean, direct contact. They try to deliver some possibilities and to figure out what's the best way to serve people within camps and the other people and the urban refugees. And in Syria, UN agencies they are there, the big agencies they are there. There's during the last battle in Idlib, they tried to talk about a humanitarian corridor from the central government side, allowing people to get out of Idlib, but people prefer to go up north to the Turkish borders, and the Turkish borders was completely closed, and people, hundreds of thousands of people in danger. Now it's quite less, tense like that because of COVID and because they try to, there's that agreement between the Russians and the Turks, etc. But yeah, access to the Syria, under the Kurdish side, the control, and the central Syria under the government control, there are agencies. On the other side, in the Idlib area, it's two very, very rare local agencies operational again because of the conflict, and it became dangerous to them.
Thank you. There are a few other questions. There's one question about, you sort of addressed this a little bit in your presentation. However, somebody's asking that they have been reading how in different parts of Africa, the pandemic has been disrupting food supply systems, and so much so that the food insecurity is often feared more than the pandemic itself, than the virus itself. So the participants would like to ask, is that the same in Syria? And is food security a greater concern than the virus itself?
Very much, very much, very much. Because let me tell you something, which is something sad. Syria is, because it's divided, our national resources, they are divided as well. The area where we could have all the cereals for bread, the basic thing, it's out of the control of the central government. Is there any agreement between both of them? I don't know. I have no idea about it. Beside that, we got some natural disasters 2 days ago, a heavy rain, and the whole harvest, it's for thousands of hectares, it's completely damaged. And last year there were kind of, completely burned. So all those kinds of problems. And beside that, we have all the possibility of having some harvests. Since Lebanon is very limited in terms of resources, except for some fruits and vegetables, but it's not enough for the local population. There are a lot of smugglers through the borders, so they try and kind of deprive the Syrian population of their own, let's say, resources, and it becomes very, very expensive in Syria, and it arrives to Lebanon as well, very expensive, for the sake of some smugglers on the borders, which is unfortunate, and it's gonna affect everybody. So not all Syrians today, they are able to afford their own daily bread. Much more than half of Syrians today, they struggle to be able to afford their own daily bread. 80%, 85% of Syrians, they are at that level of poverty where they can't only afford the basic in terms of some breads and some, cereals or whatever. As I said in my presentation, the kilogram of meat of today, it's something like 20,000 Syrian pounds. So 3 kilograms is the salary of one engineer in Syria working for the government, only 3 kilograms of meat. So could you imagine? It's dramatic.
So a couple of other questions. Well, there are a few other questions actually, but we still have a little bit of time. So there's a question from your friend Peter Bisson from Ottawa, and other questions related to that, which he sends his greetings, and he says, with all the problems in Syria and Lebanon, and so many powers competing for control, what do you do to feed your hope? And perhaps
what I do, I'm sorry, I lost you.
What do
Jenny?
you do Sure. What do you do, given all the conflicting powers competing for control? What do you do to feed your hope? And perhaps related to that, there is a question around you mentioned earlier from someone else, mentioned earlier the need for creativity in this time and at the time of COVID, and whether you could mention examples of this creativity at work.
Okay.
So where do you feed your hope, and examples of creativity at work?
I mean, at very personal level, Peter, my friend, my greetings. At very personal level, I mean, I've very much lived. This is, I'm sorry for the very Ignatian language. I very much lived and experienced that kind of motion of spirits. You know, one day in very much desolation, and the other day very much consolation, according to my situation. So in community, my first week, it was like I was very much, I mean, you know, a problem for my community members the first week when that pandemic, I mean, and then we sat together and we started discussing, you know. So it's my first year where we celebrate together the Holy Week as a Jesuits without anybody else. It was a kind of consolation, you know. We prayed for the whole humanity, the people you could imagine, you know. And we were only 6 of us, 5 young Jesuits in formation, and myself, and praying for everybody. And we hope to have weekly adoration, silence adoration, and it's a good moment for me, you know. And then you know, I go to work. I walk to work to my office, and it's something like 30 minutes walk. Now I try to go around for 45 minutes. I have time, and try to look around and to see the few people in the streets, how they struggle, how they ask for help, how they are, I mean, they laugh, how they, you know. So this is to another way of, you know, to in somehow to reconcile with my daily life. Uh, as I told, I mean, as I said, it's you know, that kind of adoration. I mean, if you tell me in the past, could you find a way to establish to have a program of adoration on a weekly basis in your community, I would say it's okay. We pray, you know, but yeah, in community adoration in silence, that's something good, you know. So those traditional way of living as a Jesuit, we can discover it again and again, you know. And yeah, as I said, I mean, I can have that kind of discussions with brothers in community and with the friends. Very simple and very deep at the same time, you know. So this is my experience of today. And again, I mean, it's very spirit. I mean, motion in spirits. You know that we can see all the movement of the spirit within each one of us, within me at least.
Perhaps related to that, if you could also address the question around examples that you have seen of creativity that have struck you most at this time, particularly at this
Yeah,
time of COVID.
I mean, it was something I read from Pope Francis giving his interview to the tablet. You know, the newspaper, from the Catholic newspaper from Britain, the tablet, and magazine. I think it's and he talked, and that was for me, yeah, something I like it. He talked about an Italian bishop who wrote to Father Francis asking his permission to go to the hospital for giving absolution to all sick from the hospital, from the door of the hospital. You know, I mean, pandemic in Italy, it was a disaster, etc. And some canon law people, they said, no, you can't, because, you know, you have to be present to the person to give absolution. So he called Father Francis, Pope Francis, and Francis' answer was, go and be a good priest, only that. And the bishop went to the hospital and he gave absolution to all sick. I mean, come on. It's not the time of canon law. I do respect canon law, but this is kind of creativity we need, you know? I mean, it's not blasphematory to give absolution to dying people in a hospital without meeting them. You know, I'm not, how do you say that? I'm very Catholic saying that because I said that after the Pope. So, but that kind of creativity, you know, we need.
Thank you. There are a few questions around your own work. You've mentioned the importance of education. So what has been if you could say something about the biggest success that you achieved in this area of education. Related to that, also to your work, there's a question around how is your work empowering local leaders to help build and respond to community needs. There's also a question always related to work, whether you're only helping Christians. So if you could address maybe some of those questions around what your work is doing.
Let me start by saying we work for everybody, regardless the religious, community, social, cultural background. We work for everybody in need. This is our mission, and we do believe that human dignity is for all, and each human being is a dignified human being. Okay, so we work for everybody, and here in Lebanon, 99% of the population we serve, they are Muslims. In Syria, something like 80%. In Jordan, something like 80% or more. In Iraq, something like 60% or 70%. I don't have exact statistics of that, but this is our work. So we work for everybody. And in terms of education, it depends. I mean, in some areas we do respect the local curriculum, and in order to give people the possibility to rejoin the official and the public school. And in other places, we establish our own way to give people that knowledge. But in anyhow, whatever method or whatever approach we adopt, we are looking for giving education to people, not only knowledge. Through knowledge, yes, but not only knowledge. Education for us is to take care of every person personally, cura personalis, and to give the possibility to that person to stand up to say, I mean, I in terms, I am. I mean, to give them that opportunity to exist in a good way with the values, the human values, etc. So this is education for us, and we do so through different capacities and activities. Okay, what was the third thing? I forgot, Jenny. So education, working with the leaders, working for the leaders, right? I mean, if we can have some people, we are in touch in some places, yeah, with the local representative and leaders for sure, but not in a very permanent and systematic way. And in some, I think here in Lebanon, we could have something, not as a JRS, but as a Jesuit, and we are connected to people who have that possibility to be very active in the society. I'm sorry. It's not COVID, thank God, anyway. So this is it. This is it. I mean, yes, we as a Jesuit, we have that possibility to be partners with others. You know, in the Jesuit tradition, since Saint Ignatius, we work with how do you say in English? Multiplicateur in French. In English, multipliers, maybe multipliers people. Multiplicateur. I don't know. Yeah.
Multipliers is fine. Yes.
Yeah, multipliers. So yeah, multipliers in not the sense though, I mean a snob way of working. No, at all. Those who could be with us partners, I mean, they are not collaborators. We order them. We are together. We try to build up together the common good. This is it.
We're coming very close to the end of our time, if we haven't already reached it. I just want to end just with a few, I've grouped together a few questions that have to do with the future and what we can do from Canada, or well, from all over the world, since there are people from all over the world in this call. So somebody was asking about, what does it mean to return to normal? Given the fact that the old normal was not very good, especially for people in Syria, in terms of housing, income, war, care for seniors, food. What would what a new normal, what should we move towards or work for in a new normal? And related to that, there are a number of questions, and we will end with this piece, is sort of what can we do in a practical way, people from outside your region, whether it's Canada or other countries, to help people in Syria? What can we do to help mitigate and bring positive change to this ongoing humanitarian crisis? And what can we do to support your work? So maybe if you could conclude with this piece, and then we'll just have a final word of thanks.
What is normalcy? I don't know. I know. We are, I mean, our resilience, the human being resilience, it's always surprising me. It's something amazing the way we can adapt ourselves to new reality. I hope it's not gonna the reality. I miss the eye contact with people. I miss to touch very friendly someone's hand. I miss that. I'm a human being, so normalcy in that sense, I hope to get back to normalcy. But normalcy in the sense of all the consumption, all the in terms in regards to the nature, how do we respect nature, in terms of how to make use of resources, natural resources, etc. That we have to reconsider, I think. I mean, this is something, yeah, we have to reconsider. This is first. Now, how could you help? You have helped. I mean, you are still helping, and I hope you are going to help. Not only in, for sure, we need help in terms of material help, for sure. I mean, that's a kind of matter of fact. But again, I'm thinking about, as of today, the sanctions on Syria, for example. I mean, we're not allowed, majority of those who are in Europe or in Canada, Syrians in Canada or in other places, if they could save 100 euros or $100 or what to send back to the family, they are not able to send it back because of sanctions. And it could be the only possibility to help people. So sanctions on whom? I mean, those who are the first affected by sanctions, they are the poorest. I mean, come on, that's something maybe we need to advocate in a very unusual situation. So this is another kind of help. And for sure, I mean, thoughts and prayers, it's always welcome.
Thank you very much. I also want to encourage people who want to follow up. You'll see on your screen there our website and we have, since COVID started, we're starting to hear many stories like the one we heard today from Father Nawras, from our partners in Latin America, in Africa, in Asia. And so we've started to publish and collect those stories, and you could read them when you go to our website. Some of them are very moving, some of them are very insightful, and some of them are help us with an analysis of the situation. So I would encourage you to do that. And I would also encourage you, you will see there that we have also launched a COVID appeal, because a lot of our the people we work with, a lot of Jesuit institutions that we support, are really facing a very difficult situation right now in supporting the communities where they work. So if you can spare some support, it would be very welcomed, and it will go to support the work such as the work of JRS MENA and many other places in South Sudan and Latin America and India. So I encourage you to click on the link there and to visit our website. Also, I want to just finish by thanking you all for joining us. This was our first experiment, but we're going to do, I want to give a very special thanks to Father Nawras, but also to the amazing CJI team that has been working behind the scenes to put this together, all from our own homes. And so I'm sure I can hear the clapping in the background. And a recording of this webinar will be sent to all the participants. So if you want to listen to it again, you're welcome to do so. You will receive it on your email. I also, please stay tuned for further webinars. We will be inviting some others of our partners to tell us how COVID is affecting them locally at this time. So please visit our website or look out for emails from us. And finally, a big thank you to Father Nawras for taking the time to be with us, and with usual graceful and warm way to be with us with his inspiring words and his friendship. So a big thank you to you. And finally,
thank you very much, Jenny.
And finally, and we wish you well in your work. And also know that we are with you in during this time. And I want to wish everyone here and your families health. And I send you a warm embrace of solidarity with many good wishes for safety, well-being, and most of all, hope. And we hope to see you not only virtually, but in real life sometime soon. So all the best. Thank you.
Thank you.